Please welcome Chris Sacca. Welcome to the grill.
Right on.
I'll take a hug. Thanks. Thanks for coming. We should start by talking about Twitter because that's one of them that's scaled and is already in a new phase. So let's start with that. You have been militating for the return of...
That's a good verb, militating.
Isn't that? It's correct.
No one said it. That's original by you. Yeah,
it's
I like
accurate,
that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the return of Jack Dorsey as to become the permanent CEO, who was already running another company that he started called Square. And you won that battle yesterday. Jack Dorsey was named permanent CEO. How do you feel about that? What's your sense of where Twitter's going to go from here?
I mean, I feel great about it, but we all knew the outcome was inevitable. I mean, Jack is uniquely talented at both his product vision and at running companies. He's shown it now at Square, and this wasn't a hypothetical. He's been running Twitter for 100 days now, and those 100 days have been the fastest moving, most productive, highest impact days we've had in the history of the company. And so I was glad the board finally got out of the way and named him so he can get back to work. If you really looked at his support, it was universal among the management team, among employees, among advertisers, partners, content producers, the leading analysts on the stock, the biggest investors in Square. Everybody wanted Jack to be CEO.
And you think the main thing is that he can't be running two companies at the same time is the main gating issue?
None of the people I listed believed that was a problem.
Okay.
A couple of people on the board seemed to believe that was an issue, and so they dragged this out. And we've got a guy here who not only was the inventor of the product and has a vision for what it could be many years out, but he also has a 100% rating on Glassdoor. He inspires the people who work for him. And in the short time he's been running the company, we've seen the product process unstuck. We've seen stuff that has been on the whiteboard wall for a while executed. We've seen code shipping. You've seen buy buttons shipped to millions of merchants. You've seen Twitter polls, which are the highest engagement thing that have ever happened on Twitter. You've seen Lightning go from something that we probably would have expected in Q1 to being out the door today. We have seen the client itself redesigned to be more beautiful, to be, it's white instead of blue, but they pulled a lot of stuff out that's increased engagement. As Twitter during the IPO process made a fundamental mistake, which is it said in its S1, its IPO filing, that you should measure the growth of this company based on monthly active users who are logged into the site. And I think that was a mistake. I think it makes perfect sense for Facebook because in order to get the richness of Facebook, you have to be logged in. It has to know who your friends are. In order to get the Twitter experiences you're seeing on Moments today, it doesn't actually need to know anything about you. Once you click a couple of times, it knows enough about you to start getting you the content you're interested in. It's a more valuable graph at the end of the day because Twitter has the interest graph rather than the friend graph. I mean, Facebook is who you used to know. Twitter is who you want to know and the things you want to know more about. And so it's a more valuable graph to a media partner. It's a more valuable graph to a retailer, to a brand.
What does the company as a whole need to do?
Well, I think Jack Dorsey understands normal people better than most of the folks in technology. Part of that is Jack is the kind of guy who leaves the office and goes and he walked the streets in Ferguson when all that was going on. You saw his vines and periscopes literally from the front lines. He's a guy who meets with small merchants and farmers markets all the time in connection with his Square job. He understands real people, and I think he knows how to make this product simpler and more approachable and more engaging for normal people.
If you could boil it down, roll back the clock 2 years or even 3 years, what would you say that Facebook did right and that Twitter did wrong?
I really think the IPO, I mean, there were a group of us who were banging the table during the IPO process saying, what in the actual fuck are you doing trying to pigeonhole us into the Facebook model? I mean, that was a real problem, and it was really advocated strongly by the bankers and the mutual funds who wanted to buy something familiar and put it into an existing model. And I think they didn't fundamentally understand Twitter, and that set us up for that challenge. That said, at the end of the day, the money is going to keep stacking up in the revenue corner, and so that's why I own a shit ton of the stock and will. Generally speaking, I'm on one board out of 85 companies, and that's just because my partner who runs our seed fund, Matt Mazzio, and I build close enough relationships with our founders that I don't need a formalized relationship to influence the outcomes for for those companies. They want to work with us. They want our advice. And I think what happened in the case of Twitter was that the company over this last quarter and a half was being run by the board And those aren't people I want to build relationships with. I want to work with the founders, the doers, the makers, the people who are driving the company, not the mercenaries, not the outsiders, not the country club of old white guys who move from company to company as professional board members. Fuck that noise. I want to be in with the people who are making it happen. You sit down with Kevin Systrom, founder of Instagram, when he was one person working on Instagram. He didn't even have Mikey there yet. He was working in a shared co-working space. It was called Pier 38 in San Francisco. And I sat down with him, and he literally said, and so when we get to 50 million users is when we'll roll out this next set of features.
Really?
And you're kind of looking around the room, and you're like, dude, it's just you. And, but it wasn't boisterous. It wasn't cocky. He wasn't trying to sell me. You actually get the sense they're looking right through you to the future, and you want to get on board before they leave you behind.